Um, I'm glad this is a small, sweet, intimate group. This is actually my first reading, so bear with me. I'll be reading from an excerpt from a bigger project that I'm working on, and it's called What Father Could. It didn't matter how many ribbons Mom put in my hair. All I heard was the front door close and the sound of ice and glass. He was home, and all I could pay attention to was the smell of alcohol and sun-injected sweat on his skin. My heart raced as my mind tried to calculate his mood before his face arrived at mine. How hard did the door close against the frame? How loud was his breath? How deep were his steps into the floor? If I calculated fast enough, I could come up with a plan, but I was blind with fear of what would come next. He made his way into the living room where my mother and I sat, and he had an undeserving smile on his face. Phew, Dad did not see me. He saw only Mother in his drunk and lusty gaze, and that meant I was safe. Mom shooed me away, and I skirted off from the path of my father. Get out of here. I've had enough with your hair. My hands are sore. Go check on your sister too, she nagged. Get, Dad echoed. I ran. Up the stairs, down the hallway, into my room. They disgusted me. They hated each other, hit each other, cursed each other, and yet they made loud fucking noises together. I could tell tonight was going to be a loud one. Dad came in, whiskey in hand, and that put him in a loving mood, or so Mom would say. Finding solace in solitude or confined spaces was my thing, but Tabitha was cramping my style. I loved her like she was my own, but she wasn't, and for that I hated her. I hated that those two fuckers I call Mom and Dad ruled and shaped her to be just as vile as they were. It wasn't her fault. She had no choice, and she probably didn't know what she was doing. In reality, she wasn't evil. I was just her scapegoat to feeling loved. As I laid in my bed, so did she. She was 4, foul-smelling, and as cute as could be. I reckon she hadn't had a bath in a week because that was the last time I bribed her into the tub. Tabitha, want to play with Barbies? Yeah, she said with a giggle. Okay then, go get them, I demanded, trying to be natural. As she harvested her toys from her room, I drew her a bath. The water fell in unison, hitting porcelain and creating milky suds. I want to jump in the tub so bad, but I don't know how to explain the newly grown hair between my legs. I tried to pluck them out with the tweezers Mom uses for her eyebrows, but they always grow back. When Tabitha returns to my side, she's no longer smiling. No, I'm not taking a bath. You said we were going to play. We are going to play, but in the bath. Get in. She didn't budge. I grabbed Tabitha's shirt at her waist and willed it in my palms as I forcefully pulled it over her head. In one breath, Tabitha tightened her mouth, drew back her saliva, and shot it from her lips. Her spit hit the corner of my cheek. I wiped it. I think I barely touched her. My hands stung with regret, but I don't remember hitting her. I can't tell anymore because Daddy followed Tabitha's cries into the room. Nothing mattered now. The truth was just a story told by the loudest voice. He took both ends of his belt and placed them together, creating a loose oval shape, and cracked the parallel strips of leather together, warning me of the force that would hit my flesh. I never tried to bathe my sister again. Put your pants down, Daddy said. I did. I stood in my underwear, grinding my teeth as I shivered. I watched him look through me, as if I were invisible. He raised his belt and whipped it against my legs and back. Daddy was careful not to hit my face. He took my body and shoved it across the room. I wanted him to feel the impact of his strength. I didn't stop my body from rolling off the bed. I hit the floor and cried, letting my voice carry me. My spirit appeared small to the surface, but my lungs were filled with contempt and rage. The pain bellowed from the pits of my belly and into the ears of my enemies. But the sound of my soul felt their abhorrence. The lash and cries were thick with adrenaline, but they ceased at once with the sound of the knocking at the door. The house fell silent, and the drum of my mom's heart became as loud as mine. Miss Jones, unyielded by the sound of my cries, now grew nervous. She crossed one arm to her collarbone as her chest tightened. She walked to the door and cleared her voice. Who is it? Knowing very well who stood beyond. Daddy No version 2 cop's intrusiveness turned the TV on and signaled me to keep quiet with one finger over his dry lips crusted with sadness. "Ma'am, we're here to check on a noise complaint," said a stern voice beyond the door. "Yes, that was my husband. He's deaf in one ear and he's going to make himself deaf in the other if he keeps that TV high like that," she said with a shaky chuckle. "So you're telling me those screams were the TV?" "That's what it is." "Open the door," demanded the officer. Mom paused. She hadn't left the house all day and her face was not made to put on a show. Her pink bathrobe hung loosely around her frame, covering only her back while her exposed thighs and cleavage hung freely in her green polyester slip. She geared up her pride and strength as she crossed each side of her robe against her body and tied it with vigor. "Open the door," repeated the voice. Mom put the chain on the door, turned the locks to the right, and opened until the chain tensioned the door still. Through the crack, the officer's blue eyes of rage hit Mom's deep brown eyes, hiding more secrets than fear. "Ma'am, how many people are inside this house?" "4, my kids and husband. I'm going to come in. Either you unlock this hinge or I'm going to break it." Mom turned her gaze upstairs, staring through the empty staircase and walls, and into the room where Tabitha, Dad, and I were with dry eyes. "Mama once said that the police could take us away from them." She unchained the door, and the officer stepped past my mom into the house. His clothes rigidly fit his body, but were closer than his tight lips of contempt. D. Pentaleo was etched on his platinum tag. His legs stood wide apart, but his baton and gun were close to his gut. My pits were moist with indecision. The fear of the unknown was greater than the fear of my home. But I had done this before. I had lied to keep this chaos together. "Where is the goddamn light in here?" I thought to myself, fumbling the dark looking. Shit, well the wine won't show on my black dress. The black dress Tabitha so clearly disapproved of. I put my champagne flute filled with red wine on the bookshelf that housed Daddy's things. I can still remember when he made me sand it down through the night with no sleep after we got it from the garage sale. "I sanded it sloppily," he said when he whipped me. "Well, guess he has nothing to say now, that dead son of a bitch." Ah, there it is, the picture of the late Jerry Jackson. Next to it, an old book rested. My hands, grainy with dust and sweat, carefully opened the album. I flipped through the pages of black and white photos filled with black sharecroppers and country folk. These were the faces of my ancestors. I winced my face, recognizing my grandpa, Percy Jackson, 1925, etched in pencil under his portrait. He stood solemn in a field with his body loosely garbed in Osnaburg. His shoulders burdened by a large satchel filled with cotton, his hands clasped in front, his mouth tightly closed. His eyes gazed into the camera and into my presence. "Percy," I whispered. I stared at the photo, feeling connected to his pain. Daddy told me tales of his childhood when he was drunk, feeling chatty and kind. I remember my father would come into my room when no one was around and tell me how good my life was and how I should be grateful. My father showed me the type of father Percy was. I turned the page, taking in the unfamiliar faces. The illusion of freedom was not well hidden. I covered the words 1927 with my palm and instead saw a photograph of slaves beside a driver on their master's plantation. I guess my daddy wasn't born free, and maybe neither was I. Percy squinted his eyes as he saw a man run in the scorching hot summer. He shook his head and kept his blistered hands at work. He needed the money. Clyde made it to Percy's face with bullets of sweat dripping down his temples, behind his ears, sticking to the cotton on his chest and under his arms in a spoil of musk. Percy recognized the excitement behind Clyde's hazel eyes as they were hustling buddies. Percy knew he just scored big. Alice had a boy, Clyde screamed with a wide smile. Course she did, Clyde. Ain't no surprise there. My little man. Percy put his pickings in his bag and slapped Clyde on the back with a forceful joy, and the two men walked to meet his son. The one-room dwelling was a snaggle-toothed wooden structure, a jigsaw of tightly cut wooden scraps Percy rented with his leased labor on the farm. He tried to fix it up by lining the walls with brown paper bags and newspaper scraps, but a strong draft found its way in, a bearable nuisance in the summer and a painful circumstance in the winter. It was a home suitable for any Negro. Percy could not expect anything more, and he never would.